I'm going to start the show by paying tribute to Dr. Michael Mosley, who, as I'm sure you know, has appeared on the show several times over the years. Tragically, his body was found yesterday after that 5-day search on the Greek island of Symi.
His wife, Clare, said it's devastating to have lost Michael, my wonderful, funny, kind and brilliant husband. We had an incredibly lucky life together. We loved each other very much and were very happy together.
Yeah, she went on to say the family were taking great comfort from the fact that he very nearly made it. And what his wife meant by that was the doctor's body was found just yards from a harbour-side cafe. So close to people that might have been able to help if they'd only realised he was there.
Yeah. Our reporter David Blackmore was on the search boat when he and the local mayor spotted a strange object on the shore. David joins us now from Symi to tell us more. Good morning, David. Good morning. Could you take us back to that Wednesday?
Yeah, morning, Kat, morning, Ben. It's a very sad end to a story that we all hoped that would have a better outcome. But it was on Wednesday where Michael set off from St Nicholas Beach to take on a 1.2 kilometre walk back to Peddy. Captured by CCTV twice walking past cafes, assumed that he was making his way back to the accommodation, but when his wife Clare returned at 7:30, she couldn't find him anywhere. So she raised the alarm, and then the Greek police started retracing his steps from St Nicholas Beach into the village of Peddy, working on the assumption that he may have tripped and fell into the sea there.
It's been an extraordinary few days, David, hasn't it, as we've all watched this story unfold. As you rightly say, everyone was desperately hoping for a different outcome. And then yesterday that his body was finally found. I mean, you were on the boat with the mayor and a Greek cameraman, and you spotted that there was something unusual on the shoreline from the boat. Just explain a little bit about how extensive that search had been and what happened when the two of you suddenly noticed the body.
Yeah, well, when the search actually realised that they'd found this CCTV footage of him leaving Peddy and heading up towards his mountainous, rocky terrain, that was when the search really changed, so that it would be a 4-mile radius over this rocky terrain, just trying to locate him. They sent up helicopters, drones, they sent out dogs, and to put into context how hot it's been out here, the dogs have been only able to go out for an hour or so most days. Now, we were keen to go and see if we could find the caves, which they're just a little bit round the corner from me here, where the rescue team were looking to try and see if they could send some people down in to see if Michael had gone there. And I'd spoken to the mayor, along had a couple of Greek TV journalists, and he took us out on a water taxi that runs from Peddy here into this marina. And there's some tourists on the boat with us too. So we actually dropped off here and then made our way round here to head up towards the coast to go and look out these caves. And it's here where we actually turned around and we looked back to look at the marina and get some footage of it, where me and the cameraman spotted something that was dark, something that looked unusual here. And it was just over here behind me. You can see this concrete fence going down here. It was just about halfway up there that we saw something a bit unusual, and it actually took, at first we couldn't identify what it was. It's only when we took that footage back to Peddy, once we'd gone to see the caves and got back, that we zoomed in and continued to zoom in until we recognised it was a male body. And at that point, the mayor contacted all the relevant authorities, and one of the barmen here then went out and indeed identified it was a body.
I mean, the tragedy is, as his wife has identified, is he was so close to the bar. I mean, it was a number of sort of tens of yards from where the bar were, where public were, that if only they could have noticed him, they may have been able to help.
I think that's one of the questions that's going to be needed to ask, really, in terms of trying to get a bit of a time as to when he was actually here, because the actual route that he would have taken, I mean, I can see it here, and it's so close. And, you know, I know Claire mentioned that in her statement as well. You really can't put into context how close he would have been. And you also can't put into words how tough this challenge would have been in terms of the heat that they had on that day, to get over that mountainous route, to get over to the top of it, and then see the marina and be so close but not quite make it. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
And David, I wonder, it's such a small little island, it's such a small little port. I wonder what the atmosphere is like with the locals, knowing that something and somebody who is so high profile and globally renowned has tragically lost his life in their tiny little village.
Yeah, well, the Mayor has definitely been in the forefront of sort of rallying together the local community in order to help with the search and rescue. You know, there have been teams that have been sent over from Rhodes to carry out the search, but there was so many members of the community that were happy to volunteer, to go out walking. A lot of the fishermen here were like scouring the coast just to find any clues that they could that would have helped the search and rescue team. And people here were just confused. For such a small island, 25 square foot, 2,500 people on here, they said to me, people just don't get lost here. So there's been a lot of confusion, and they've been really keen to try and make sure that, well, like everyone, that Michael would be found alive. And that was the real hope for a lot of us throughout the last few days, is that maybe, he sought shelter, maybe he sought medical advice. Because the thing is with this story as well is that Michael didn't have his mobile phone on him, so he would have no way potentially of contacting others. So we really did hope that there would be a better outcome for this. And it was, I was really surprised that we actually spotted the body where it was, bearing in mind that there'd been helicopters going up overhead here the day before. But I suspect that maybe just the viewpoint that we had where the boat was sort of turning around, hugging the coastline here, that we were able just to get a glimpse of it and finally find him.
Well, I'm sure the family are incredibly glad that you were able to spot that, David, you and those cameramen on the boat. Thank you for joining us this morning and sharing a little insight into what life is like and what has been going on for the last few days.
Yes. And we are now joined by Michael's good friend and colleague, Dr. Phil Hammond, who was given his TV break by Michael on Trust Me, I'm a Doctor, as well as Dr. Sara, who's worked alongside Michael. Good morning. Good morning.
Hi.
Phil, how well did you know Michael?
Gosh, I first met Michael in 1995. He'd somehow discovered that I was Private Eye's secret medical correspondent, MD, and had broken a big scandal, a Bristol heart scandal that was going to become a public inquiry. And he came up with this idea of doing a show called Trust Me, I'm a Doctor, that had two strands. One was to look at care across the NHS and try and get people better standards of care. And one was his real passion, which was lifestyle medicine. Instead of pulling people out of the river of illness, we needed to wander upstream and stop them falling in. And his infectious enthusiasm was the thing that really struck you, plus the fact he got the science right. I think when you're doing science reporting, it's really important to get the facts right. And he had a really good team of researchers around him with science backgrounds. And he would be across every single story. And back then, it was like an enthusiastic child. He'd go down a rabbit hole and come up with a little snippet of information, such as your longevity could be predicted by how long you could stand on one leg with your eyes shut. And there are loads of people, and Dr. Chris Van Tilliken has talked about how he does that. Well, he's brushing his teeth, he closes his eyes and stands on one leg. He found that female babies in the womb open their mouths and appear to talk more than male babies. So he'd come up with all these amazing little facts, and you think, is he just making these up? And then he'd come up with the science. So I think it's the way he communicated the science. And then later he became the subject of the story. So when I was presenting the show, he was keen for me to self-experiment. He talked about taking tapeworms and injecting yourself with truth drugs and having scopes up and down your body. And I said, you know what, Mike, I'm not so keen on that. And why don't you do it yourself? And that's what he did. I mean, so as well as being such a good communicator, he made himself the subject of the story. He was very open about his diabetes. He would self-experiment. And that's what made his communication so enthralling. And the thing that really struck me is that when you went to one of his book signings, people just didn't want his book signed. They wanted to line up and say, thank you for turning around my health. You'd meet people who reversed their type 2 diabetes because they'd followed his diets, etc. So I think that's his, even though he wasn't a practicing doctor, he probably helped far more people than your average doctor because his reach was so huge, his communication was great, and he actually got people to change their behaviour, which is really, really difficult.
And do you think that's going to be his legacy, in essence, the fact that he did manage to get people to change their behaviour before they got ill?
Yeah. Yes, and I think that's what we need to run with. If we want to save the NHS, whoever happens to be in power on July the 5th, we do need to wander upstream and stop people falling in the river of illness. And we need to take the ideas and the skills that Michael had and make them even more accessible. I mean, he reached millions, but we have a huge problem in this country with health inequalities. And Mike wasn't at all party political. He just took his message out to whoever wanted to listen and help people from all backgrounds. And his podcast, Just One Thing, was the most popular podcast on the BBC, because he acknowledged that life is difficult, health is really hard, you're struggling, but here's just one thing you can do this week that will make a difference. And if you followed it for 10 weeks and you did those 10 little incremental things, it could have quite a profound effect on your sleep or your diet or your exercise. So I think we need to roll out Michael's ideas on a grand scale and improve the health of the nation, and that would be a fitting legacy.
Well, the tributes we've been getting from some of our viewers would absolutely agree with you there, Phil. Barrett says it's incredibly sad. Michael dedicated his life to sharing his knowledge to help bring joy to others and health to others. A loss of such a brilliant person. And James, I think, interestingly, on the point of what you were saying about making people healthy, James says, Michael meant so much to me in my life. He made me healthy. And I wonder, Sara, whether that was because James started following the 5-2 diet, of which Michael was sort of the creator and did all the research to sort of make it work, and has had such an impact on so many people.
Yeah, he was an absolute pioneer in terms of healthcare. He would break down really complicated, complex issues into bite-sized, manageable, digestible and understandable ways. And it's a bit like how Phil mentioned, he also used himself as the experiment. And he had type 2 diabetes, and he managed to put himself into remission by following intermittent fasting, the 5-2 diet. So the 5-2 diet essentially is where you ate normally a healthy balanced meal 5 days a week, and then 2 days of the week you would have between 500 and 600 calories each day. And it has been shown that these types of intermittent fasting diets both help promote weight loss through calorie restriction, but also help to improve the insulin regulation. And that is partly how he put his diabetes into remission.
Do you think that's what makes it so powerful, is the fact he did have kind of this almost childlike curiosity, but actually made himself the experiment?
Yeah, he was the guinea pig. And so I worked with him back in 2017, and it was on a series about we did the truth about sleep, because he himself always said that he was a terrible sleeper. And so he took some of the things that we were testing and he did it all himself. And I think that really endears people towards him as well, because he shows that, you know, he's not infallible.
No.
He is like everybody else, but he's willing to make those little small steps towards making himself healthier. And I think, you know, doctors are really inspired by him. I certainly am, because he put lifestyle, he championed lifestyle. He flew the flag for lifestyle medicine and preventative medicine, and that is so important.
Yeah.
Julia says, rest in peace, Michael. You changed the conversation on healthcare for the better, which is your legacy for others. Liz says, my heart goes out to his family. I feel as though I knew this man through his television appearances, his various health and diet books and podcasts. What a legacy he's left. Phil, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and your experiences of working with me. Clearly has a huge impact on you as a professional, and you, Sara. I think it's really telling that as doctors yourselves, you know that he's impacted on your professional lives and your personal lives as well. And clearly from all of our viewers and their messages as well, he will be sorely missed, but very fondly remembered.
Absolutely. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.